Hi, I'm Cliff Creech, Director of Sales Engineering for Phillips Connect, and I'm here today at IANA's 2020 Innovation Incubator to present our next bright idea. I want to start with chassis health telematics, and any review of telematics really has to start with GPS. So you can add GPS tracking to chassis and see where they're at, how long they've been there, and trace them back with all the events and breadcrumbing. But really, the next level is adding sensors to them to give you all the information you need to remotely assess what's going on with the chassis. So just going through one example, you can see this chassis is mated to a container. It has active tire pressure issues. It has an auto inflation system, but there's nothing out of the ordinary going on there. It has ABS issues, so we can look at the health of the brake system. We're monitoring the air tank and seeing the air flows in and out of the tank. There's nothing unusual going on there. And this unit has light issues as well. I'm going to drill into two of these just to show the level of data that's available from today's telematics. So I start with the light issue that was reported. This has a left turn signal fault that needs attention. Also on the tire side, this unit has two tires that are severely underinflated at 78 and 77 pounds respectively. You can also see, as you combine all the different sensors, that it has auto tire inflation activity on November 30th that pushed the pressures in these tires up, but they then fell again, which suggests that there is a leak in these tires and that they need attention. I focused on lights and brakes and tires as I went through telematics for a reason, and that's because lights, brakes, and tires cover 70% of out-of-service violations for chassis fleets, and anybody who's attended IANA meetings in the last 20 years knows that's where we focus on for our maintenance committee agendas. Lights, brakes, tires, over and over again, meeting after meeting. So we've established that chassis health data is available. Really, I want to shift the topic to how do we share that information with motor carriers? And the reality is right now, it's really hard to do that because the IEP that gets access to that information by investing in telematics doesn't have a good method to see which motor carrier is in possession at all times. And even if they had the motor carrier in possession, they don't have good ways to contact the motor carrier and share that information so that it can be of use to drivers. So our bright idea is to go back to the well and do that like we've done a lot of other things to improve the industry. Our solution is to go back to IANA, who has built time and time again great tools to help the industry solve the problems that we're facing, and really look at them to help us build it. And one of the pieces that helps us do that is the UIA that IANA administers on top of all of those great tools. The UIA covers 95% of intermodal interchanges, and it gives us the building blocks for our bright idea. Our specific recommendations. First, ask IANA to collect interchange information for every interchange completed under the UIA. That interchange information would include the facility, the chassis, the motor carrier, the date and time, and it would be both in gates and out gates so that you could establish the period of possession for each interchange. Also want to make sure that the data that's collected, it's not used for a commercial purpose, right? This is very specific for a safety and efficiency purpose that we're trying to promote, not trying to make this commercial in any way. The second piece of our recommendation is to ask motor carriers to provide contacts as part of the UIA for health information coming from chassis. For the motor carriers that opt to give that information to UIA, it then lets the IEPs have a single place to go for both pieces that they need to share telematics information. They know the motor carrier in possession with recommendation 1. They know who to contact at the motor carrier because of recommendation 2. When you put all that together, they can send that information to the motor carrier, who can then get in touch with their drivers and tell them if there's a health issue that may make them route that driver to a different asset. This doesn't sound like a big deal, but in fact, it's something that is going to change our world. All right, so in closing, how can our solution transform the industry? Well, when you have accurate information about the current health of an asset, and you share that with all of the parties involved in the intermodal supply chain, everybody wins. We have safer chassis on our roads, Drivers are more productive because they're not being sent to assets that they can't move anyway. So they're not spending time on dry runs and they're not waiting in roadability lanes. Facilities are more productive because they're not loading containers onto chassis that can't leave the terminal anyway. Assets are more productive because you're not waiting for a driver or mechanic to inspect the unit to find a fault that the telematics could have told you when it happened. And last and most importantly, the customers who rely on all of us to make their intermodal moves happen have more visibility so that they can see that there's going to be an issue with a particular move and they can have a better plan of how they're going to deal with that. Right. So that was our bright idea, making motor carriers have access to chassis health telematics with 2 recommendations for IANA. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today.